Welcome to Inside Scoop Live, the podcast where indie authors get personal, sharing insights about their books, their writing journeys, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt, and I invite you to join me for engaging conversations with both debut indie authors and seasoned veterans. Whether you're looking for your next great read or a bit of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Sarah Gibson and Abbey Walsh joined the show today to talk about their book, Empowered Weight Loss. It's a real-world guide to why willpower and calorie counting fail women in midlife and what actually works when 5 specific hormone imbalances are at the root of the problem. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the authors. Sarah Gibson is a physician associate, author, speaker, and fierce advocate for women's health. Certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine in using food and nutrition to reverse chronic disease, she is the founder of Vitality Health Matrix and the medical architect behind the Matrix Method, a comprehensive hormone optimization protocol that has helped over 1,800 women lose an average of 22.7 pounds in 90 days. Sarah is an associate producer and featured medical expert in Balance, a Perimenopause Journey, now available on Apple TV and Amazon Prime, and the co-author of Empowered Weight Loss. She delivers the results women have been told are impossible. Abbey Walsh is a certified nutrition specialist, author, speaker, and nationally recognized expert in personalized nutrition, advanced supplementation, and hormone optimization for women in midlife. As the co-founder of Vitality Health Matrix and co-creator of the Matrix Method, Abbey brings over 15 years of experience in fitness and functional nutrition. She is the co-author of Empowered Weight Loss and a nationally recognized speaker on the intersection of nutrition, supplementation, and hormone health. Abbey's work goes far beyond standard nutritional counseling. She delivers results that diet and exercise alone simply cannot achieve. And you can learn more about Sarah, Abbey, and their work at vitalityhealthmatrix.com and empoweredweightlossbook.com. Well, good morning, ladies. Welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Thanks
Good
so much.
morning.
To get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about, what the book is about, and then maybe the inspiration behind writing the book.
Well, Abby and I have known each other for years, and we've both gone through our own hormone and weight struggles, both different journeys, and really didn't have anywhere to turn for help. And so we joined together, created a company, Vitality Health Matrix. And after helping a few thousand women, we thought, these are excellent principles that we're customizing for our clients, but that every woman deserves to know. They don't need fancy equipment. They don't need to spend thousands of dollars. This is just free information. And so we decided to write a book, no gatekeeping, and we have packed it with everything that we've learned over the past few years, helping now it's over 2,500 women.
That's wonderful. So, did you start off doing your own thing and then come together to write the book, or how did that work?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So, Sarah was already practicing as a physician associate, working in the medical weight loss space with hormone health and helping women lose weight. And I was running my own private practice for nutrition that was all natural based with supplements, nutrition, lifestyle, fitness. And when we met each other, actually through working in business coaching and consulting, we would run cases by each other. We would talk to each other about how our businesses were going. And time again, we would see how Sarah's patients would benefit from some of the things I was doing. And my patients had gaps that needed filled in as well. So since we both had thriving practices that were getting great results for patients, we decided that, hey, if we put these together, we could actually 10x our results with clients because every woman needs, nutrition and lifestyle support for medications to work better. And the women who are doing nutrition, lifestyle supplements only sometimes is not enough to get them where they really need to be to optimize their hormone health. So that's really what pushed us to come together is that we both had our own expertise and were very successful, but we knew that women needed the full package.
Now, is this for premenopausal, postmenopausal? Who is this book for?
So after the age of 35, women start going through hormone shifts that are related to premenopause, perimenopause as they go through menopause. And, up until a few years ago, there just wasn't enough information. And so women would start experiencing things like sleep issues, brain fog, fatigue, and weight issues, along with a whole other constellation of symptom profiles. And they just didn't know what to do with that information because they only knew about menopause. They knew menopause is when you stop getting your period and you kind of go through this transition, but no one realized that it was a 10 to 15-year period of struggling. There are other women who have struggled with hormones their entire life, where they maybe were diagnosed with PCOS or they had to be put on birth control at a young age. And they've always had maybe infertility issues or hormone struggles. And so, what we've found through our research and then treating so many patients is that hormones are such a key part in the way that we feel as women, how we show up with energy, how we're able to control our weight. It impacts our mood, our sleep. And this book really meets women anywhere in their hormone journey,
Mm,
mostly for women that have never really had issues and then at age 35 start struggling, for them to understand what's happening in their body and things that they can do to support their body. But really, any woman can read this because we're all going to go through menopause at some point.
right. I went through menopause at 48 and I never really had any problems. But now at 62, I'm seeing all these hormone medications and face creams and, lose weight products. I don't feel like those apply to me. That's why I was asking about, who can this book help? Now, I love how your book opens with your personal stories because the best way to connect with readers and people that are interested in the topic is to share that you've gone through or are going through the same thing that they're going through. Why was it so important to you to include your personal stories?
I think there are a lot of people out there that are selling GLP-1s, for example, right? And they're just looking to turn a profit and, they're very good at marketing. And for both Abby and myself, we didn't set out to do hormone health and
Mm,
weight loss and necessarily work in this niche. Abby has a fitness background, owned a gym, taught fitness classes, ran nutrition classes. I worked in the traditional medical model. I worked in trauma, critical care, emergency medicine. And it wasn't until we each went through our own hormone struggles or saw things happening that we then looked for answers and couldn't find any.
mm,
And for myself, it took me 6 years. I was 60 pounds overweight. I was struggling with depression. My energy was awful. My sleep was awful. And I had four small children. And I just felt like I was showing up as the worst version of myself. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I went to my doctor, I went to functional medicine. I tried every diet on the planet. I ran a full marathon, trained for it for 8 months, ran 26.2 miles, couldn't lose weight. I did a fast, which was 17 days of nothing but water and electrolyte salts, no protein, no broth, no nothing. And it was medically supervised. But I only lost like 2 or 3 pounds. And so for me, I thought, there's no way for me to eat less than water, and there's no way for me to exercise more than marathon training. There has to
right.
be something else going on in my body because it's not a discipline problem. Like, I'm doing all of the right things. And so I dove into the research, discovered perimenopause, hormone changes, and then took it a step further and how there are 5 specific hormone imbalances that will impact your ability to not only lose weight, but account for so many other things. I think, Sherry, to your point, you mentioned about how, you're at 62 and you're hearing all of these things now about hormones. The issue is because there was a huge study that went out in 2002. It's the Women's Health Initiative that said hormones cause cancer. And in the traditional model, we said, well, if there's nothing to do because hormones cause cancer, then we're just going to stop all research, all education for medical providers, and women are just going to have to suffer. And so that's what's been happening over the past 20 years. So
Yeah.
I personally experienced it, dove into the research, found that there were answers. And now you're hearing more about the health benefits of hormone replacement therapy and how that study was flawed. And it's more than just hot flashes and night sweats, that it helps a lot of other medical conditions as you start getting older.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Abby, what about you? How did you feel sharing your personal story?
Yeah, I mean, what I think is really beautiful in the way that we shared our stories in the beginning of the book is that Sarah and I both experienced different hormone challenges, but they came from different angles. And we wanted every woman who reads this book to feel represented in one way or another, whether, they're in the throes of perimenopause and they're experiencing kind of all the classic symptoms that we hear about: hot flashes, night sweats, fatigue, brain fog, or if maybe they had been experiencing hormone struggles their whole life, like Sarah had mentioned, is definitely something that women can benefit from reading this book. And that was partially my story. And my story came from a different angle, that I experienced hormone shifts even earlier. And I experienced secondary infertility, multiple miscarriages. And
Mm,
sometimes that's hard to share and talk about, but it is something that happens so commonly and we don't talk about it. And then there's a stigma around it. So if more and more women realize that, hey, there are signs that there's something going on in your body way earlier sometimes than perimenopause, and there's things that we can do to support it. And, kind of back to that first question too, of what was our inspiration around writing the book, is that Sarah and I both have giant hearts for accessibility and teaching women how to advocate for themselves. And when you're not getting the answers that you're looking for from providers that you're working with, if you're being gaslit or shut down and told everything's fine when you don't feel fine, that it's okay to keep searching for answers. And there are answers out there and there are solutions. We don't have to sit and struggle. So our hope is that, through our struggles that we've pushed through, that we can inspire other women to not sit still and take that no for an answer when they're not feeling their best, that they can get the help that they deserve.
right, right. And, I think for that reason, for me specifically, 20 years ago, I just started going to only females where I could, because, they know about my body more than men do. And, Sarah, you mentioned about, well, you're doing all the right things and everything's normal. And so when I hear that, when most women hear that your labs are normal, you think, so what's wrong? Because I know something's wrong. Is there a difference between what a normal lab result is and an optimal one?
Yeah, just to even take it a step further, how is the normal range determined? So they take 95% of your same demographic. So 95% of women in their 40s. And if you fall within that 95% of what their labs look like, you're considered normal. It's
Mm,
only abnormal if it's above, outside that 2.5% above or below 2.5%. And so I don't know about you, but most of the women that we care for have been told that their labs are normal, but they have symptoms saying that they don't feel well. And so when we look at the normal lab range, it includes people who have disease going on. It includes people that don't feel well. It includes people that are on different types of medications. And so just because it's normal for women to go through menopause and have no sex hormones doesn't mean that they feel well not having any sex hormones. And it also doesn't mean that they're healthy. And so when we look at a range of normal, you're not just treating a lab value, you're treating the person. And a great example that we use in the book is vitamin D. It is so simple to test. It's just a serum blood test. And if you look at the normal range, it's 30 to 100. But if you look at the literature, vitamin D is protective against heart attack and stroke. It prevents osteoporosis. It decreases inflammation. It helps to manage your mood. It's actually the number one missed diagnosis of postpartum depression. And it has so many other health benefits. If you want all of those benefits, your vitamin D level, shown in research, has to be at least 60. So our optimal range is 60 to 80. So if you go to your doctor, you have a vitamin D of 31, they tell you your labs are normal, but you are missing out on all of the health benefits of having your lab levels optimized.
yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. Now, you mentioned metabolizer types. Can you tell us about those? Maybe walk us through them really quickly and explain why you need to look at all five together.
Sure. So when you have changes in sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, it sets off a cascade of events throughout your body. And it will impact the thyroid, it will impact your vitamin D, it will impact your adrenal gland, and it will impact the cells, the insulin sensitivity. And so when we talk about the five metabolizer types, we're going through and talking about all of those interconnected systems. So it's easy for us to just say, these are the main five. They directly impact your energy, your metabolism, and the way that you feel. And it also is super common as you go through perimenopause. And so that's what we test with lab values.
Okay.
And when you look at all five together, you can optimize health, you can feel better, you can reverse symptoms, and you can move that needle on the scale. Because if you have low sex hormones and just do hormone replacement therapy, it's not going to improve your vitamin D, right? If you are on a GLP-1, it's not going to increase your thyroid function or, help you make more sex hormones. And they're all interconnected in a way that you can't just treat one tiny piece of the puzzle. You have to just put it all together.
That makes sense. I mean, going back to the, let's look at the whole picture here. Now, there's a line in the book that just kind of grabs you. It says, women are not just smaller versions of men. And oh my gosh, that is so true, because how many years were women treated as smaller versions of men, whether it be health and fitness or diet or exercise or whatever, What does it actually mean for a woman trying to lose weight, being compared to men and given men's guidelines?
I think it's just important to realize that, for women to feel validated that, okay, these plans that maybe I've been told to follow, the research is almost always done on men and not women when all of these ranges are set. And then we just go through and we're like, oh, women are smaller. So we'll just take the calorie bracket down a little bit. And we don't realize that we're not taking into account that our biology is incredibly different. We were designed to grow the population and we have different metabolic demands on our body. Our hormones impact our metabolism and we work cyclically. Every day of the month is looking a little bit different for us, where men, every single day, their hormone pattern is looking exactly the same. So not only do we have our hormones impacting our metabolism, but also our muscle mass is different. Everything is different. And so for women, after age 30, every decade of life, we're losing 3.5% of our muscle. And so as we are losing muscle, that is decreasing our metabolic rate year after year after year. So we can be doing the exact same thing as we were when we were 20, but now that we're 40, we have less muscle mass, we have a lower metabolic rate, and we're going to burn less calories at rest every day. So we have to look at the way that we eat, the way that we move, the way that we support our bodies is going to be so much different than men. And when we actually wake up and look at that, I think it makes us feel really validated that it's not that, we try to do the exact same, nutrition plan or fitness plan as your spouse or, a male counterpart that and how many of us have experienced that where we're doing the same thing and they get great results. They lose like 10 pounds in a week and we're sitting there not getting any results at all because our bodies are designed differently and it requires a different approach.
Yeah. I see so many couples in the gym doing their workouts together. One person will do the machine, then the other person will do the machine. And I'm like, how's that working?
Yeah. And it's not that, you can't weight train with your spouse or, that we both can't benefit from the same exercises, but we've just been taught to kind of push through and ignore our bodies all the time. And it's very normal for women that, some points in your cycle, if you're a cycling woman still, you're going to have more energy because your hormones are higher. And there's going to be other points in your cycle where your hormones are dropping and you are just more reactive and more sensitive and you need more rest. So, kind of getting away from this one size fits all approach and understanding our hormones, understanding that there is, our unique bodies need different things. And from a hormonal standpoint, depending on where we're at in our cycle, if we are cycling, it's okay to be in tune with your body and to not push just because that's the plan to follow.
Right, right. And the good news is, whatever your age, there's always room for improvement.
Say it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah,
Every woman is at a different phase in their hormone journey, and they also have different demands on their lifestyle and different ways that they like to eat. And so it's not a diet, it's not a fitness plan, it's just hitting some goals and living in a way, supporting your lifestyle that is going to make you feel your best, no matter if you're in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopausal, at any age. So
How does a woman reading your book determine whether do I need to take a look at my habits, or is there something else going on? Like your example with, doing the marathon and doing the fasting. And how can they tell what side of the coin they're actually on?
yeah, I think the big thing is for women in general, like we've all heard, oh, you have to eat healthy. Oh, you have to exercise, right? And so we have a lot of women who have gone through our program who have been, for example, lifelong athletes. They said, I never struggled with my weight. I always was consistent in the gym. And all of a sudden, I'm not doing anything differently. I have the same level of stress on my plate, but these symptoms are popping up out of nowhere. I never had struggles with sleep before. I never had issues with my libido. I never struggled to control that number on the scale. What's happening? And then they don't know. They go to the doctor and the doctor says, "Oh, well, your labs are normal." You feel gaslit. You feel like, "Well, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, I'm taking all the supplements that influencers are recommending. Why can't I get results? What's wrong with me? Is it a discipline problem? Is it my fault?" And then it just turns into this self-blame.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like. It's just dismissive. It's like, "No, I'm doing all the right things." It's very frustrating. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's no woman out there that's going to start all of a sudden eating, cheeseburgers, chicken wings, nachos 3 times a day, and the scale goes up and they're gonna think, "Wow, it's not me. I'm doing everything correct." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
One thing I always like to say when I talk about weight loss is weight loss requires margin. We have to create that margin one way or another. We've all heard, before we have to eat less than we burn in order to lose weight. That we
Mhm.
can't outbeat that science. That science is true. But I like to explain, when you're 20, you can kind of create that margin any way you want. If you want to do the keto diet, you can do the keto diet. If you want to intermittent fast, you can intermittent fast. And we have more margin metabolically and hormonally that as long as we're creating that deficit, most people will get results. But as we age and our hormones shift, that metabolic flexibility just isn't quite there anymore. And so we have to create margin, and we can create that margin by still, creating a calorie deficit when our hormones are balanced, and we will get results. But if our hormones aren't balanced, we don't have that margin. And even if we are, eating clean and we're cutting our calories lower, when your body is in a stressed pattern, it's going to hold on to fat. And so that's really the difference, is that, in this question of, is it a hormone issue or is it a habit issue? I think it's both. And it's almost always both, because even if you're doing all the right things, if your hormones aren't balanced, you can still be stuck. And even if you are, stuck, that doesn't mean that just because your hormones are imbalanced, it's the excuse that we don't need to also get our habits in check, because our habits just have to change as we age. It doesn't mean that the healthy things you're doing now aren't good, but sometimes we have to shift those to serve where our body's at in this new stage of life, and our needs change as our hormones change too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that, the focus is not just on weight, because you can weigh 120 pounds and have no muscle whatsoever. You can weigh 120 pounds and be, very fit, very healthy, very muscular. So for me, I need to get past that number on the scale too, a lot of times. And that allow me to feel better about myself if I'm, kind of feeling down.
Absolutely. A number does not define healthy at all.
Right.
And so, the more we can release that number and really fall in love with the habits that make us feel our best and work towards optimizing our labs. A lot of times, while all the women that come in to work with us, whether they say it or not, weight loss is always a piece of their goal. But sometimes
Mhm.
we come in with a number that we think we need to achieve. But really, once we start feeling good again, once our labs become optimized, we have our energy back, we actually have desire, we feel confident, we can put on any clothes in our closet and feel good. That number starts to mean a lot less, and a lot of times fades away as we kind of heal our relationship with food, our body, and feel like ourselves again.
Yeah. Now, sometimes women will need supplements or medication to help do their jobs, and some women need prescription support. What do you want women to understand about that so they don't feel like they failed and they're not doing everything right?
Yeah, I think it definitely starts with their labs and their own data, knowing which of the 5 hormone imbalances, and I don't think I didn't tell you specifically, but insulin resistance, cortisol dysregulation, vitamin D deficiency, sex hormone imbalance, and thyroid dysfunction. And those are real metabolic hormone panels that can be done easily at just any outpatient facility. Okay. So we're not talking complicated labs.
Right.
And it depends on the level of damage in your body. Some women just need to, provide some of the precursors that their body needs. So hitting some protein and fiber goals and just building a little bit more muscle for that body composition. But when we talk about medications, what we're talking about is healing the root cause, healing the reason why you're struggling.
Mm,
And sometimes supplements are enough, but sometimes it does require medications. And that's not a personal issue. It's just where your body is in the damage process. One example is 80% of women are going to develop insulin resistance, which becomes prediabetes and full blown type 2 diabetes. 80% are going to develop that as they go through perimenopause and menopause. The problem with insulin resistance is that you can be eating the correct foods, you can have, fat stores converted into glucose, and that usable energy goes all throughout your body. So any cell that needs energy raises its hand, insulin is released, and glucose will go into the cell and be burned efficiently. So that's when we say calories in equals calories out, right? So you
mm,
can maintain a healthy weight and you have energy. When we're talking about insulin resistance, there is a biological dysfunction happening where when insulin binds to that cell, the lock is broken. That gate cannot open up, and that glucose does not go inside that cell to be burned for fuel. And so your body reacts as though you're starving. It will drop your metabolism so you're burning fewer calories. It will drop your energy so that you don't do more things. And all of the glucose that you do, in fact, have in your bloodstream is stored immediately as fat and mostly around the middle because it's easier to get it back into the glucose form again. And so you can't out exercise or out eat a biological disorder like insulin resistance. And so there are medications that are focusing on healing that root cause rather than just causing you to struggle and suffer and not understand how to troubleshoot.
I'll speak real quick to supplements and medications too, Sherry, because coming from the natural health side of things myself, I'm sure, any woman listening to this who maybe has that question of like, have I failed if I need a medication is probably coming from that kind of same school of thought as me where, I don't take a medication unless I absolutely have to. I try to avoid it at all costs. And for women who maybe come from that place where they're trying to do everything naturally, it can feel like a failure. But I think a difference between how we specifically approach medications as well is that we're not using medications as a band aid. We're using medications if it's going to help us heal something at a root cause level or help us fill in a gap while we address the root cause. And so, whenever we approach medicine that way, it doesn't have to be one school of thought or the other, natural or use medication. That's really what we practice is integrative medicine here, where we are integrating the best of both worlds and not using anything as a band aid, but really working to address like, why did this happen in the first place and how can we heal the body to make sure that it's supported? And the other thing to share when it comes to medications is, if our body has stopped producing hormones as we go through perimenopause and menopause, if we are down to no hormones left, it's supposed to happen that way, and your body isn't going to make more. That doesn't mean
mm.
that you have failed, and it doesn't mean that you have to struggle either, because the way that we really practice as well in our private practice is we're not trying to give women hormone levels of what they had in their 20s anymore, but we want to give them the smallest amount to really get those symptoms under control and to make them feel like themselves again, to feel good, to have energy, and to be able to live their life to the fullest. So it's not failure, it's replacing something natural that your body already had on its own. It just needed a little extra support.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. I'm like, I don't want to take any if I don't need to. But like, there's no stigma around having to take heart medication or having to take insulin. So why would you feel like a failure for other things that would help your body?
And that's why in the book we tried to put everything together. I mean, there are other menopause books out there, there are weight loss books out there, there are fitness books out there. But for us, exactly what Abby said, we practice integrative medicine. And so we wanted to include all of the tools in the toolbox in this book. We wanted to talk about lab testing. We want to talk about lifestyle factors, gut health. We want to talk about supplements that are going to help heal your body. And then we give our optimal lab values, our supplements, our
Mm,
protocols, our medications, so that you can see on a platter all of the options, and then you make an informed decision why I would use this one medication and not another. And that's what we walk our patients through, that decision process. It's a two-way street, but education is first and foremost, and just knowing what the options are and why those would be an option in a specific scenario is exactly why we called it empowered weight loss, right? It's a very empowering to know
mhm.
what's happening in your body. And then you make educated decisions about how you're going to treat it, how you're going to fix it, and what your comfort level is with treatments.
Yeah. Now, you've built this system, you've written a book, you've helped over 2,500 women now. Do you have a website? Where do you go from here? What's next? All that good stuff.
Absolutely. Our website is vitalityhealthmatrix.com. But also, as we talk about the book, we have built an entire book resource website to accompany the book to make sure that every woman who purchases this book and reads it has all the resources necessary. So that website is empoweredweightlossbook.com. And it has everything that we're talking about. In the book, there are symptom checklists, and we talk through lab levels, and we talk through all the different treatment options. But on that website as well, we provide you with, downloads that you can take the latest research to your doctor and have an informed conversation if they're open to it so that you can advocate for yourself. We have a lab checklist of exactly what labs that we recommend for you to get tested and how you could take that and ask a provider you work with to do so. And if you don't have a provider who's going to help you and listen, then we have a way for you to get that done through us too. And you can order lab testing through us. You can become a patient through us on that website as well. But our goal in writing this book, just like we didn't set out to start a hormone health and weight loss practice, our desire is just that women become empowered, that they do stand up for themselves, that they do advocate, and they don't stop until they get the care that they deserve. So if you have a provider who listens to you, wonderful. We want to equip you with all the tools necessary to get the care that you deserve. And if you don't have one, we're honored to be part of your health journey too.
Yeah. Okay. And that's the question I actually meant to ask is that how do women advocate for themselves? Because it's so easy to be dismissed. And then, the doctor's out the door and you're like, wait, I have questions.
Right. And part of advocating for yourself is the education piece, right? To be
Yeah.
informed. And so that's why, when we wrote this book, Sarah and I didn't want to gatekeep any information. We didn't want to leave anything out. We wanted to make sure that if you pick up this book and read it, you would understand, part one of the book, what is happening in your body on a biological level? What are those hormone shifts? What are the symptoms I'm experiencing? Getting in touch with your body and what's happening. What labs do I ask for? Part two, what can I do from a nutrition and lifestyle perspective right now to support my body, whether I do any medications or not? These are the non negotiable things that I need to do to feel my best and support my hormones. And then part three, what are all of the treatment options available from medications to supplements to our lab levels, and to know exactly how to advocate for yourself. So that is, I think, step one of advocating for yourself is the education piece, having access to that. And that's really what this book is.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. So much good stuff here. Will you have another book, a follow up, or do you see just kind of building other avenues from here to help women?
I think at this point, we have a fantastic system. We have the best people on our team. We've created the book so that people have a very accessible ways to educate themselves.
Hmm.
But from here, I think really our goal is just to get the word out there that there is help, that there is hope, that 20 years of damage, from one flawed study is being reversed. And we're just increasing the conversations, just talking with women and trying to educate.
Wonderful. Well, Sarah, Abby, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation today?
No, I think that this covered a lot today. We're just grateful for the opportunity to share and to speak and to let women know that there's hope and help available. And that's what we say every time we talk to a woman and they ask, like, hey, how can I get the word out? Like, read the book, share the book with somebody else, because it's the reason why we wrote it was we wanted to make sure, not everybody is going to be able to work one-on-one with us, but can we get this message out to the world where people have it in a very accessible way to get the help that they deserve?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And that's Empowered Weight Loss by Sarah Gibson and Abbey Walsh. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today and being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for joining me today for my conversation with Sarah Gibson and Abbey Walsh, authors of Empowered Weight Loss. To learn more about Sarah and Abbey and their work, visit their company website at vitalityhealthmatrix.com and the book website at empoweredweightlossbook.com. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive.com.